Hey, it's Brian Demay. Welcome to Warm Storytime. I'm reading a story that my son just told me was one of his favorites when we used to read out loud to him as a kid. I will tell you this, parents, this story does defy a few laws of physics. And I will say this, it does say bedtime stories for boys, but these stories are good for girls too. And the story that I'm reading to you now is called The Chocolate Soldier. In the window of Mrs. Brown's candy store, there stood a chocolate soldier. He had chocolate ears, chocolate eyebrows, and a curly chocolate mustache of which he was particularly proud. But best of all, he loved his shiny foil uniform with its braid on the shoulders and turn-ups and smart red stripes down each leg. All day long, the chocolate soldier stood to attention on a shelf in the window, staring straight ahead out into the street. Standing next to him on the shelf were more chocolate soldiers, and beyond them he could see some sugar mice and a twist of licorice shoestrings. It was summertime, and the sun shone through the window of the candy store. At first, the chocolate soldier felt pleasantly warm. Then he started to feel uncomfortably hot. Next, he began to feel most peculiar indeed. His chocolate mustache was wilting, and his arms were dripping. Soon he was completely melted, and before he knew it, he had slipped out through a hole in his silver foil shoe and was pouring off the shelf and out into the street. Down the street he poured. "Stop! Help!" he shouted, but nobody heard his cries. Now he could hear the sound of gushing water, and to his horror he could see he was heading for a stream at the bottom of the street. "Help me, I can't swim, I'm going to drown," the chocolate soldier cried as he plunged into the cold running water. But now something very strange was happening. He found that he could swim quite easily. He looked around and saw that he had a chocolate tail covered in scales. He looked down at his arms, but there was a pair of fins instead. The cold water had hardened him into the shape of a chocolate fish. The chocolate soldier was carried downstream, and after a while the stream broadened out and became a river. He realized that he would soon be carried out to sea. "Whatever shall I do?" wondered the chocolate soldier. "I'm sure to get eaten by a bigger fish, or maybe even a shark." He tried to turn around and swim against the river's flow, but it was no good. The current swept him way down the river again. Soon he could see the waves on the shore. He smelt the sea air and tasted the salt in the water. Now he found himself bobbing up and down on the sea. He could see a boat not far away, and all of a sudden he felt a net closing around him. He struggled to get out, but the net only tightened, and soon he felt himself being hauled out of the water and landed with a thwack on the deck among a pile of fish. The smell was awful, and the chocolate soldier was quite relieved when he felt the boat being rowed towards the shore. "I'll hop on over the side as soon as we land and run away," he thought, quite forgetting that he had no legs but only a fish's tail. But there was no chance of escape. As soon as the boat reached the shore, he and all the other fish were flung onto buckets and lifted into a van. The van stopped outside a shop, and a man carried the buckets inside, where it smelt of fried fish and French fries. This is where I would usually say to my son, French fries. The chocolate soldier found himself being lifted up with a lot of other fish into a huge metal basket. He looked down and saw a terrible sight below. They were heading for a vat of boiling oil. At that very moment, he felt very peculiar once again. His scales melted. His tail drooped, and he felt himself slide through the holes in the basket and into the pocket of a man's coveralls. The chocolate soldier lay in the corner of the pocket while the man worked all day in the shop. Then the man headed for home, with the chocolate soldier bouncing up and down in the coverall pocket as the man walked along. Soon they arrived at the man's house. He reached into his pocket. "Well, look what I've found," he said to his small son, "a coin. Here, you can have it, but don't spend it all at once," he said, chuckling to himself. Dad jokes, right? The chocolate soldier felt himself being passed from one hand to another. What's going to happen now, kids? What do you think? "So now I've hardened into the shape of a chocolate coin," he thought, "and I'm going to be eaten by that boy." But to his surprise, he found himself being slipped into the boy's pocket. The chocolate soldier felt himself bouncing up and down in the child's pocket as he ran up the street and into a store. The chocolate soldier peeped out and, to his astonishment, saw that he was back in Mrs. Brown's candy store. Then he realized what was happening. The boy believed that he was a real coin and was going to try and spend him. The boy stood in the lineup at the counter. The chocolate soldier, meanwhile, called out to his soldier friends in the window, "Psst, it's me, help me get out of here." One of the soldiers looked down, but all he could see was a chocolate coin sticking out of the boy's pocket. But then he recognized the voice. "I'm a chocolate soldier like you, but I've been turned into a coin. Help!" cried the chocolate soldier. "Leave it to me," replied the soldier on the shelf. "Don't worry, we'll have you out of there in no time." The word was passed along, and quick as a flash, one of the sugar mice chewed off a length of licorice bootlace. Then the soldier lowered the lace into the boy's pocket, where it stuck to the chocolate coin. Carefully, the soldiers hauled the coin up onto the shelf, and the chocolate soldier was delighted to find his foil uniform was still there on the shelf, just where it had been before. All the effort of getting onto the shelf had made him quite warm, and he found that he could slip quite easily back through the hole in the shoe and into his uniform again. Again, kind of miraculous. "I'd like a chocolate soldier," said the boy to Mrs. Brown, but when he reached into his pocket, the coin had gone. "Never mind," said kind Mrs. Brown. "I'll let you have one anyway." And she reached into the window and took down another soldier from the end of the row and gave it to the boy. And as for our chocolate soldier, in the cool of the night, he turned right back into a smart-looking soldier again. That's quite an adventure, isn't it? And that is the story of the chocolate soldier from Bedtime Stories for Boys.